Long ago, the Titan Atlas and the water nymph Pleione had 7 daughters: Maia, Electra, Taygeta, Alcyone, Selene, Asterope, and Merope, the 7 sisters from 2 parents, all of them gods. In one story, Zeus sentenced Atlas to forever hold the heavens upon his shoulders. So saddened by their father's ordeal, Zeus lifted his distraught daughters into the sky so they could be close to their father. In another version of the story, Orion, the hunter, pursued the 7 sisters. Zeus first transformed the women into doves and then stars to protect them from his advances. Or so the myth from ancient Greece says. We see them in the night sky as the collection of stars bearing the name the Pleiades, or the 7 sisters. With their 2 parents, the 7 sisters take their place in the sky alongside Orion the hunter, visible from October to March in the northern hemisphere. But if you count, even in clear conditions, even with a good eye, you may only be able to discern 6 of these stars. Where, if at all, is the 7th, the lost Pleiad, as she is known? Indeed, in this painting by Elihu Vedder, the broken thread held by the central figure symbolises this lost Pleiad, the missing sister, and though there are 7 figures, there are only 6 stars above. The ancient Greeks also have an explanation for one sister's absence. Merope married a mortal man by the name of Sisyphus. You may have heard of him. Now Sisyphus, according to myth, was a murderer and a tyrant, and so punished by the gods to heave a rock up a slope for eternity. His misdeeds in life and death aside, what was truly notable to Merope's sisters was that Sisyphus was mortal, not divine. Her sisters considered the union between a mortal and a god degrading. Merope was so ashamed of their judgment that she hid her face. Hence, the 7th sister is barely visible, if at all. It's a cute story, for sure. But why is the star system named the 7 sisters, if indeed there are normally only 6 stars visible? And is there anything we can learn from the story of one sister's absence? Another story goes like this. There were 7 sisters in the sky. The second to youngest daughter, named Eyes in Different Colours, fell in love with a man on earth, a mortal. As all mortals do in time, he died. The sister told her siblings of her love and her loss, but they mocked her for her interest in a mortal. Out of deepening grief and shame, Eyes in Different Colours took a veil from the night sky and covered her face with it. Thus she hid herself from her sisters and the world below. A similar story, no doubt. This story comes from the Namipu, or Nez Perce, a people indigenous to what is now the northwest United States, half the world away from Greece. How can the Nez Perce have a similar story about the Pleiades, a similar missing sister, and a similar explanation for why she is hiding? Now at first, I'm sure the instinct is to call coincidence. Of all the stories about the stars, of all the cultures in the world, of all the people who have looked up in wonder, surely we should expect an occasional coincidence. But it isn't just the Nez Perce. In the North American continent alone, there are stories from the Cherokee and the Wyandot peoples at least, which share striking similarities. In Cherokee star lore, it's not daughters but 7 dancing sons who float up to the heavens, but not before their exasperated mother pulls one back to earth, the other 6 slipping away. In the Wyandot story, an infatuated man, at least infatuated is the polite way to say it, stops one maiden from ascending into the sky with her 6 sisters. On the other side of the world, in the Philippines, there is the tale of the 7 swimming sisters, again pursued by a man who steals the discarded clothes of one sister. In Hindu myth, a slightly different story says that the Pleiades are to be paired with the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, but due to a misfortune, one missed out on this. Finally, and most distantly, there are Aboriginal Australian peoples who have a deep connection to the night sky. The Milky Way to many, a river leading to the home of their creator. Common among mainland tribes are stories of 7 sisters pursued by a man. The man apprehends one of the daughters and... need I say more? There are many stories explaining the absence of a 7th daughter, a missing star of the Pleiades, told across the world. Why? There aren't 6 stars in the Pleiades, not 7, 8, or even 9. When Galileo viewed the Pleiades through the first primitive telescopes, he saw an additional 40 previously invisible stars. Today we know over 1,000 stars call the Pleiades their home, just most are small and dim, invisible to the naked eye. They may not be human or even gods, but they are related. The Pleiades are a star cluster, a group of stars born from the same cloud of gas and bound together by mutual gravity. As such, they are all hot, roughly the same young age, and contain the same impurities. Of the 7 sisters and their parents, Alcyone is the most massive. Merope is probably the eldest and the hottest, while Electra is the most luminous. Maia has a significant abundance of metals, at least on its surface. Atlas is a triple star system. Taygeta and probably Pleione are double systems. But there's much more to say about Pleione. While Asterope and Seleno are also sisters, they are the dimmest of the 9, just behind Pleione. In ordinary conditions, they are extremely difficult to see, if at all. The star cluster is roughly 440 light-years away, a huge distance in human terms, but compared to the size of the galaxy, the home of all the stars we can see with the unaided eye, it's no distance at all. To us, the heavens are static, unchanging, in contrast to the hectic terrestrial world below. But the stars do move, our solar system just the same, on timescales much greater than our lives. The Pleiades are drifting in the direction of the Orion constellation, and over millions of years will be so far away they are no longer discernible from Earth. Likewise, the stars within the Pleiades will drift apart from each other as well. Using precise measurements of the stars' positions and movements, we can trace back the paths the stars have followed over tens to hundreds of thousands of years. The shapes we see in the heavens are temporary, just as the stars themselves are. Since the dawn of the scientific revolution, there have been attempts to explain religious or mythical stories using the language of science. Cultures around the world have been mystified by a glowing streak in the night sky, recurring every 76 years or so. Is it a message? An omen? In 1705, Edmund Halley, using the theory of gravity that Isaac Newton developed, understood it to be a single recurring thing, a comet. When its highly elliptical orbit brings it into the inner solar system, it becomes briefly observable in the sky. Today we know it as Halley's Comet. A lump of water, ice and carbon, the size of a town. When it nears the sun, material is heated and ejected, constituting its ghostly tail. Through scientific inquiry, the mystical had become real, reverse apotheosis. In 1680, a different bright comet was seen streaking brilliantly across the sky. Not Halley's eponymous comet with an orbital period roughly equal to a lifetime. This one, according to calculations by Edmund Halley, took 575 years to orbit the Sun, encountering the Earth less than twice a millennium. A contemporary of Halley's, William Whiston, calculated that there was a particularly close encounter with Earth in 2342 BC. The same year, it had been inferred as the biblical Great Flood. Whiston suggested that water from its tail, along with great tides caused by its mass, covered the Earth in water. The flood was real, divinely manifested through this comet. But this is not what happened in actuality. A miscalculation far underestimated the comet's true orbital period. In reality, it won't be until the year 12,000 that it returns to the inner solar system, close to Earth. And so, at the very least, the comet was extraordinarily far away from Earth in 2342 BC. What about the flood itself? While the biblical account, as written, is certainly false, there are many distinct stories from around the world of great floods in the distant past. Ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, Hindu folklore are just a few. Hugely destructive, they are often seen as purifying, washing away the dirty and the bad, sparing only the clean and the pure. No doubt natural floods would have been disastrous to ancient cultures. Finding a home in the cultural memory, stories about floods would perhaps become embellished, given greater significance. Anthropomorphization, personification, the dispassionate workings of nature take upon human trappings, sin and virtue, good and evil, heroes and villains. The last ice age ended 12,000 years ago. Glaciers melted, the earth shifted, land sank beneath new seas. Indeed, it was only after the end of the last ice age that the British Isles detached from the rest of the continent. Some scientists and historians have linked the melting ice of the end of the last ice age with the abundance of flood myths. The contents of these flood stories are certainly far removed from reality. There is no evidence of a biblical flood in or around 2342 BC. But, hidden within the billowing tail of Halley's comet is its unassuming source, the nucleus. Is there, hidden beneath these deluge stories, also a grain of truth? You see where this is going. What of the seventh missing sister? There are two scientific explanations for the missing sister. They both concern Pleiades, the seventh brightest of the asterism. Today it is on the cusp of visibility. The first explanation, as hinted before, is that it has drifted into a position where it is more difficult to discern. The stars of the Pleiades are not fixed. Everything in space moves, often at velocities that would make our heads spin. But space is also extremely big, which largely cancels this out. 100,000 years ago, Pleiades was significantly further away from the star Atlas than today. As it moves visually close to Atlas, it disappears in the glare from the brighter star, at least to human eyes. In the distant past, Pleiades would have been much easier to make out. Over aeons, the star is disappearing, becoming engulfed by its mythological partner, to some, hiding herself in shame. The second explanation leans on the fact that stars not only move, but evolve. Our sun is remarkably, even curiously stable, but others are not so placid. The main star in the Pleiades system, Pleiades A, is a shell star. It is surrounded by a great shell of hot gas, particularly at the equator. The star is spinning so quickly it's almost tearing itself apart. Material can be thrown out at over 200 kilometers a second, quick enough to get from the Earth to the Moon in half an hour. The Apollo rockets took 3 days to cover the same distance. When a large mass of material is thrown out, known as a shell event, the star increases in brightness temporarily. It makes the star much more visible to some observers across history. Could either or both of these hypotheses lie behind the myth of one of the sisters disappearing? Perhaps the second hypothesis is more significant than the first. as it allows cultures to periodically see the sister hide her face in shame or get caught by a pursuer again and again. Similar stories of the seven sisters are found in what were mutually isolated cultures across the world. On the surface, it seems unlikely to be purely a coincidence. This fact lends itself to the hypothesis that the stories have a single, common origin, spread from culture to culture from a single source. However, the Aboriginal Australians would have had no possible meeting with the people of the Americas before the year 1770, when James Cook and co. landed in New South Wales. A meeting between the peoples of Australia and America prior to this would require a radical and implausible rethinking of world history. Humans do have a common origin. We evolved in Africa, but climate change pushed some of us to leave. Roughly between 90 and 60,000 years ago, the first modern humans made tentative steps into the Middle East. From there, some turned west into Europe. Others continued east, spreading bit by bit into Asia, Australasia, then across a land bridge into the Americas. The final major place humans reached was New Zealand, less than 1,000 years ago. Long ago, humans were small in number and all together, but drifted away from each other. They took with them various technologies, simple tools, fire, cooking, language, handed down from generation to generation. Each of these was invented long before their inventors' descendants spread across the globe. Could they too have taken with them the story of the missing seventh sister, shared from person to person, parent to child, on clear nights, among countless other stories? The stars above are mystical, mythological, the homes of gods and ancestors. But too, they have practical, even mundane uses, marking the changing of the seasons and as a navigational tool. Their appearance in the sky for the ancient Greeks marked the time of the year amenable for sailing, which is probably where the name Pleiades originates. The numerous stars of the Pleiades, closely clustered together and relatively bright, would be an obvious, natural navigational beacon, and from that, the subject of stories. Because the number of stars visible isn't constant over long or short periods of time, due to the varying brightness of Pleione, or indeed the different visual acuity from observers, questions would be asked, and the answer would come in the form of a tale. Richard Dawkins' theory of memes says that ideas spread from person to person, like viruses do, based on how shareable they are. When we apply this to the Pleiades, it suggests that elements of the story are worth remembering and sharing. Today, of course, we think of memes as funny images on social media. Why did the chicken cross the road? Any joke, myth, or image macro you've seen or heard has spread from person to person, changing and even adapting from a single origin, like it has a life of its own. The very human themes of relationships and shame could have kept the story of the missing sister alive. Did our ancestors hold on to the myth for tens of thousands of years from a single source as they spread across the world? Could a story stay unchanging for such periods of time? We have to remember, before the written word, stories would be shared through word of mouth, and, with practice, people are able to memorize much more than we sometimes assume. Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, both tens of thousands of words long, were shared orally long before they were written down. Native American and Aboriginal Australian cultures, primarily nomadic and never independently developing writing systems, have deep oral traditions. Unlike fire or tools which were handed down for their utility, the myths of stars seem to be impractical in comparison. Yet the positions of the stars, as the sky changes over the night and over the year, were vital for navigation and timekeeping. Naming and giving personalities to the stars helps stimulate the memory for recounting to the next generation. Perhaps the notion of a missing sister has a single origin, but the explanation as to where she has gone diverged as cultures grew and changed. Alternatively, perhaps the 7 in Seven Sisters is common, and each culture explained why one star is seemingly missing generations later. Similar social mores around relationships and shame converged to shape the story. What from today will be remembered in the distant future? Radioactive material remains hazardous for aeons of time. The nuclear disaster site Chernobyl will not be ready for human habitation for roughly 20,000 years. Radioactive material from safely decommissioned nuclear power plants or byproducts from nuclear weapon production are just as troublesome, let alone spent fuel. The average person may not, on an intellectual level, understand the science behind radiation, but they will fear it nevertheless. We have all grown up in a culture where the spectre of radiation, invisible but dangerous, is taught and warned about. But empires rise and fall, civilizations expand and collapse. Cultural attitudes change over time, written and spoken languages evolve to the point of unintelligibility. The Canterbury Tales, written in Middle English less than 700 years ago, are difficult for a contemporary reader to parse. Beowulf, roughly 1,000 years old, forget about it. Then how can we possibly deter people from excavating or exploring radioactive zones thousands of years into the future, when written signs in any language, even symbols, will likely have lost their meanings? Many proposals involve making radioactive zones physically imposing and daunting. Bleak, concrete landscapes of spikes, blocks, or holes to discourage explorers. But humans are curious, risk-takers. That is to say, deterrents like these may backfire. Beyond architecture, more esoteric proposals include breeding cats to change colour in the presence of radiation. Our descendants would understand, from myths and legends fabricated today, that when these so-called ray cats change colour, danger is nearby. Another involves founding an atomic priesthood, a religion which would preach of the dangers of radiation zones. Contemplating timescales much longer than our lives requires us to look beyond our immediate surroundings. We look up. When the Big Dipper has transformed into a new shape, nuclear disposal zones may be safe once again. The many myths of the Seven Sisters, the reality of truly long-lived stories, raises the potential of another option, modifying the story of the missing sister to carry a warning. Did one sister wander too close to a danger zone? Thanks for watching. The main theory of this video comes from a paper written by Ray and Barnaby Norris, which is linked in the description. Go have a look at it. The rest of the sources are of course also linked.